The wall between my office and her recording studio is thin enough that I can hear everything. She's mid-episode now, soft-voiced, confident, tapping her pen on the desk between sentences like she always does when she's locked in her rhythm. Modern love thrives on emotional transparency, she says into the mic, and I feel a small twitch at the corner of my mouth. Not quite a smile. Definitely not a laugh. Real connection requires real communication, she continues, that practiced sincerity pouring through the drywall. Last night, we sat on opposite sides of the couch, half watching a documentary about long-distance relationships. I'd asked her, gently, if she felt something had changed between us. Nothing accusatory. Just a quiet observation, offered like a glass of water. She didn't look away from the screen when she answered. Not everything needs a conversation, she said. No heat in her tone. Just cool dismissal. Like she was brushing lint off her sleeve. So I didn't push. I nodded, waited a beat, and asked if she wanted some tea. She said sure. Now I'm listening to her explain the importance of naming emotional disconnection before it becomes resentment. She says it like she invented the concept. Like she hasn't spent the last 3 weeks dodging eye contact across the breakfast table. There's a particular warmth in her voice when she records. It used to be familiar, used to be for me. Now it feels like she's aiming it somewhere else entirely. I can't name who yet, but I can feel it. I don't interrupt. I let her perform. Instead, I open my notebook. Not digital. Nothing traceable. Just a pen and paper, old school. I write down the date, and next to it 4 words. Not everything needs conversation. Then I underline it. There's no need to argue with her about it. No need to explain how strange it is that the woman who preaches empathy like gospel couldn't make room for one honest moment on a Tuesday night. I'm not here to plead. I'm here to pay attention. In the other room, she's laughing at something she said, a self-deprecating joke about being a little too emotionally fluent. Sometimes, her audience will eat it up. I close my notebook and lean back in my chair. She thinks I'm not listening anymore. But I am. I just started listening differently. A week later, she shares a new article on her profile. Creating safe spaces for vulnerability in long-term partnerships. A sleek graphic accompanies it. Warm tones, soft fonts, a quote in bold. Holding space for emotion is the deepest form of connection. It gets traction. Dozens of likes. A few thoughtful comments. I read them all, quietly, without responding. That same evening I try again. Not to argue, just to feel where we actually are. You've seemed a little distant lately, I say. We're unloading groceries. She's lining up jars of almond butter on the counter like she's arranging a product shoot. She doesn't look up. You're always in your feelings, she says, light and clipped. It's not a joke, though she tries to wear the tone of one. A beat passes. She adds, it's exhausting sometimes. That one lands, not like a jolt, more like a cold hand around the base of my neck. Quiet, steady, unmistakable. I nod slowly. Okay, I say. And that's it. Later that night, she's in bed first, curled on her side with her phone an inch from her face, thumb scrolling fast. I walk in, and she turns the screen slightly away. Not a full movement, subtle, practiced. I don't comment. I just memorize it. The next morning, I notice something else. Her voice is animated over coffee, not with me, but while replying to someone's story with a series of laughing emojis. Her whole posture changes. Shoulders relaxed, half smile lingering longer than anything I've seen aimed in my direction lately. You seem chipper, I offer nonchalantly. She shrugs. Just something funny from work. That's the second time she's mentioned a Ben this week. New consultant on her project. Just joined the team, apparently. He's sharp but kind, she said yesterday. The kind of phrase that doesn't mean anything unless you're already suspicious, or trying not to be. I go back to my own screen and search the name. Not to stalk, just to orient. His profile's public. I recognize the face. He reacted to 3 of her recent stories. All the same emoji, the one with the little red heart. Again, I don't say anything. I just start noting patterns. Her attention flows one direction now, and it isn't toward home. So I stop trying to redirect it. Instead, I watch where it naturally lands. Patterns don't lie, not over time. Not when you're paying attention. It starts with the laughter. Not the usual kind, not the polite chuckle she gives during dinner or when I mention something from my day. This one's different, throaty, lighter, like it rises up without permission. It always comes when she's holding her phone close, thumb poised like she's trying to press the moment deeper into memory. Twice in 1 week I hear it, once while I'm rinsing dishes, another while I'm on a call in the study. Both times, the laughter ends as soon as she hears me approaching. Screen flips downward, face returns to neutral. I never say a word. She mentions Ben again. His name threads itself into more conversations than I think she realizes. He gets it, she says after a long planning meeting. We don't even have to explain things, we just think the same way. I raise an eyebrow. That's rare. She nods without looking up from her tea. Yeah, it really is. I let that sit there. I don't need to pull at it. She's unraveling all on her own. The following day, she forgets to turn off notifications while we're watching something. A message pops up, bright and fast across her screen. Ben, you're hilarious. Honestly, I needed that. She tilts the phone just slightly away. Again, not overt, but deliberate. I glance at the message, say nothing, and return my gaze to the screen. But the show is background noise now. It's not the message that gets me, it's the tempo, the frequency, the shift in energy, the way her attention is no longer shared, but allocated. I'm not angry. Not yet. I'm somewhere else. A colder place, maybe, but also clearer. There's no guessing anymore. She's creating a new space outside of us, and she's choosing to live there more often. I begin timing things. How long she takes her phone into the bathroom. How quickly she locks the screen when I walk into a room. How often she mentions Ben, directly or indirectly. I don't snoop. I don't unlock devices. I don't confront. I just build a quiet ledger in my mind, and every new entry adds weight. She posts another story that night, just a quote. The most dangerous silence is the one you justify. Dozens react, including Ben. I don't. I just take out my notebook again and write down the quote. Then I underline that one too. We're at a gallery event, something she insisted we attend together. Her colleagues opening. Wine, soft lighting, the kind of quiet chatter that feels curated more than spontaneous. She's in her element here. Good lighting, good angles, all eyes scanning for someone more interesting than the person in front of them. We mingle. She introduces me to people with that polished smile she uses in crowds. This is my husband, she says, warm, proud, like we're still a polished unit. To anyone watching, we are. I nod, offer a handshake, add a comment when needed. I don't mention the nights she goes to bed before me and the mornings she's already texting before coffee. I don't mention the name Ben, the one she hasn't said aloud in 2 days but hasn't stopped smiling at through a screen. Then, during a lull in the small talk, someone asks her what makes our relationship work. She doesn't pause. We're really honest with each other, she says with absolute confidence. That's our thing. Mature communication. I look at her profile as she says it, the casual tilt of her head, the soft certainty in her voice. It's not even that she's lying. It's that she believes she's telling the truth. I say nothing. I hold my glass a little tighter and make a small mental note. Because real honesty, the kind I would offer her now, would have blown this whole curated space apart. It wouldn't have fit the room. It would have shattered the tone, the lighting, the music. So I nod once politely, smile at the person who asked, let the performance continue. But that moment, that exact sentence, becomes a pivot for me. Until now, part of me still hoped there might be a conversation that could pull things back. That maybe we were just off track, distracted, overwhelmed. That hope flickers for the last time right there in that gallery. Because what she's offering isn't just distance anymore. It's performance. It's image preservation dressed as closeness. And I won't compete with a curated version of us that exists only for spectators. On the ride home, she plays a podcast clip through the car speakers. It's hers, a segment about the necessity of gentle truth. She hums along with the intro music like it's a song she likes, not a message she's failing to live. I stare out the window and quietly mark the evening. That was the last time I played along. The shift came in a blink, the kind of moment you don't look for but recognize instantly once it happens. She was late for a client call, pacing, muttering about needing to upload a presentation deck. In her rush, she left her laptop open on the dining table, screen still awake. I wasn't near it intentionally. I was walking past with my mug, headed for the sink. But the message flashed bright across the top right corner of the screen, bold and unmissable. Ben, last night was perfect. You're impossible to forget. I stopped midstep, just enough to register it. No punctuation, no emojis, just clean, direct. It didn't feel flirty. It felt finished, like a summary of something that had already happened, now living only in memory. I didn't touch the laptop, didn't scroll, didn't click. I just stood there still, while my coffee cooled in my hand. It was stunning at first, not the content, but the confirmation, the clarity of it. Like the moment a blurry photograph finally comes into focus, and you see what's actually in the frame. It didn't hurt the way I thought it might. It settled into me with an eerie calm, like a final puzzle piece I'd already suspected existed but hadn't held in my hand until now. She came downstairs 10 minutes later, earbuds in, mid-conversation. She gave me a smile, reflexive, automatic, and mouthed back soon, as she passed. I nodded and returned the gesture. But something in me had locked into place. I sat down at my desk and opened my own laptop. Logged into the admin panel for our joint digital portfolio. Domains, licensing, back-end access. She wouldn't notice small changes yet. Most of the assets were mine anyway. She'd contributed visuals, but the architecture, the code, the strategy, that was mine from the start. I rerouted ownership of 3 key domains and a central hosting account to a private holding I'd set up months ago, back when I first sensed the drift. I didn't do it in anger. I did it the same way you'd close a window before a storm, quietly, methodically, with an understanding that once the wind shifts, it's already too late. She was upstairs, probably pacing, still coaching someone through emotional clarity. Downstairs, I was securing the exits. Not to run, not yet, but to make sure when the reckoning came, I'd be ready. The message from Ben, it wasn't just a betrayal. It was a conclusion, and I'd already decided what kind of man I'd be once the truth settled in. Not broken, not loud, prepared. By the time I left for the offsite, everything that mattered was already under lock and key. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't pack hastily or slam doors. I booked my ticket 2 weeks out, scheduled the client meetings myself, arranged the hotel. She knew about it, even helped me pick the blazer I wore on the first day. That irony didn't escape me. The night before I left, we had dinner like nothing was wrong. She asked if I'd remembered to print my travel documents. I said I had. She mentioned she might get drinks with a friend while I was gone. I nodded. I didn't ask who. Instead, I stayed focused on the details she wouldn't see. Private financial reroutes. Legacy passwords scrubbed and changed. A quiet migration of creative licenses. Subtle enough not to trigger alerts, complete enough to insulate me. She wouldn't realize anything had shifted unless she tried to make a change herself. By then, it would be too late. I wasn't hiding assets out of pettiness. I was protecting what I'd built before her, around her, sometimes in spite of her. Retribution didn't interest me. Security did. Control did. Freedom did. While I was away, she posted a long thread online, one of her signature reflections. This one was about emotional safety in modern partnerships, loaded with buzzwords and careful phrasing. It went viral within hours, shared by therapists, influencers, a few journalists she followed. She looked powerful, poised, thoughtful, until the replies started. Screenshots surfaced, private messages between Ben and his fiancée. Apparently, someone had found her. The pieces didn't add up. Someone posted timestamps that overlapped with her thread. Someone else tagged his company's account. A small fire began to catch. The thread stopped growing. Then she started deleting. By the time I got back into town, her feed was quiet. The pinned post was gone. The comments she used to leave on Ben's page? Deleted. His account? Locked down. She didn't mention any of it when she picked me up from the airport. Just asked how the offsite went. Told me the cat missed me. I nodded, strapped in, said nothing. She asked what I was thinking about. I looked out the window and told her. Just glad to be home. But that wasn't true. I was thinking about how quickly a house of mirrors collapses once the light shifts, and how calm it felt to stop pretending I couldn't see the cracks. She always knew how to control a narrative. That was her real gift, not just articulation, but performance. She knew which words landed well, which phrases felt like truth even when they were camouflage. For years I admired it. For months I resented it. Now I just watched it unravel. Her viral thread hadn't just fizzled, it had imploded. Quietly, yes, but with precision. The screenshots didn't accuse, they exposed. Side-by-side timestamps of her posts and Ben's location tags. Mentions of his fiancée. A subtle nod to her coaching clients and whether emotional integrity still meant something when the camera wasn't rolling. She'd underestimated the timeline, overlapped narratives, believed the online self was untouchable. People started whispering. Not to her face, of course, but I heard them. In the pause after her name was mentioned during a Zoom panel. In the reshuffling of client rosters in our shared calendar. In the emails that once came to both of us and now landed in my inbox alone. She tried to get ahead of it. A carefully crafted apology post went up one evening, vague but emotive, full of growth and internal misalignment. Comments were disabled. It didn't last 24 hours before she pulled it down. The silence that followed was louder. At home, she moved differently. Slower, more deliberate. She checked her phone less, lingered near me more, not affectionately, but strategically. Testing the temperature. Wondering if I'd noticed the shift. I had. But I gave her nothing. She started asking gentle questions. About my schedule, my sleep, my mood. I answered politely, neutrally. I could feel her probing, searching for leverage she no longer had. Her confidence, once effortless, began to crack in the smallest ways. She second-guessed her outfits before virtual sessions, re-recorded voiceovers she used to nail in one take, deleted more than she posted. One night, I heard her upstairs on the phone, speaking low and quick. The only words I caught clearly were, "It's not what it looks like," followed by, "I didn't mean for any of it to spill out like this." I didn't ask who she was talking to. She came downstairs 10 minutes later, hair tied back, face pale and stripped of the usual gloss. She looked like she wanted to say something, anything. Instead, she just sat beside me on the couch and stared ahead at the screen. I let the silence stretch. It wasn't the kind that begged to be filled. It was the kind that made the truth louder than anything she could have said. I didn't announce the return to normalcy. I simply enacted it. Early mornings at my desk. Long afternoons rebuilding systems she no longer had access to. Quiet evenings filled with music she once said felt too heavy for dinner time. Now, I played it deliberately. She hovered more. Asked if we could have a night to reconnect. I told her I'd think about it. 2 days later, she broke the tension. "We need to talk," she said one evening, standing at the doorway of my office. Her tone was measured, practiced, like she was trying to sound spontaneous but had rehearsed it a dozen times. I didn't look up right away. Just finished the line I was writing, then closed my notebook. I walked over to the side table where I'd placed a single printout. Folded once. Neat. Silent. I handed it to her without a word. She opened it slowly, cautiously, already defensive before reading a word. It was her thread, the now deleted one. I'd captured it before it vanished. Every post, every phrase about vulnerability, emotional safety, and the courage to speak truth when it's hard. Beneath it, I had written just one sentence in blue ink. "You weren't talking to me. You were performing." She stared at it, mouth parting slightly like she might say something, but no words came. I stepped past her, out of the room, and left her standing there with the truth in her hand. Not my accusation, but her own echo finally reflecting back at her without applause. She followed me to the hallway. "That's not fair," she said. Her voice cracked, not dramatically, just barely, like her throat wasn't sure if it wanted to cry or argue. I turned back slowly, met her eyes. Neither was any of this. No raised voice. No dramatics. Just clarity. The kind that doesn't need volume to cut deep. She stood there for a moment longer, gripping the printout like it might change shape if she held it tightly enough. But it didn't. I left her there and returned to my work. For the first time in months, the air in the room felt clear. Not healed. Not light. But honest. She unraveled faster than I expected. Not all at once, but in small, erratic threads. At first, it was calls. 2 a day, then 4. Voicemails where she tried to sound calm, but her voice always rushed toward the end like she was afraid of losing her window. She asked if I was okay, if we could talk, if I was still invested in the process. I stopped answering. Not to punish her, but because there was nothing left to say that hadn't already been said through action. Next came the emails. Paragraphs lined with half-reflections and gentle redirections. "I know I didn't handle that moment well. You've always had such a high tolerance for truth. I think I assumed that would carry us. It wasn't about deception. It was about confusion." Each one tried to reshape the narrative without taking ownership of the original fracture. Each one still reaching for control, just with softer hands. At work, she appeared once, unannounced. Just walked in, all controlled poise and careful breath. "I don't want to leave things like this," she said, standing at the edge of the lobby. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pull her into a side room. I looked up from my desk and said, "There are no things to leave anymore." She blinked hard. Her hand opened slightly like she might reach for something. I didn't give her anything to hold. She lingered a second longer before nodding once and walking out. Her face didn't break, but the back of her neck was flush red as she left, a small tell she used to hate when she couldn't hide emotion. That was the last time she came in person without asking. The warmth she once used as leverage no longer worked. She tried to engage, asking about old songs we used to love, sending photos of meals she made, small memories she thought might thaw something. I didn't delete them. I didn't respond either. When we finally did speak, briefly, at a scheduled meeting with our mediator, my words came in measured statements, not questions. I didn't need answers. I already had them. She sat across from me, waiting for the moment I might finally break the wall. I let the silence stretch between us. She shifted in her chair, adjusted her sleeve, tried to soften her expression. But softness, when used as strategy, becomes brittle. And I wasn't interested in brittle things anymore. Only clarity. An exit. The blow didn't come from me. It came from her employer. I heard about it 2 days after our last meeting, a quiet message from a mutual contact. One of those, "Just so you know," emails that arrive wrapped in professional courtesy and veiled satisfaction. Apparently, the leadership team had been reviewing public statements from key personnel. Standard due diligence, especially during high-visibility transitions. Her company was mid-M, and a rebrand and restructuring that meant every face connected to the brand needed to reflect stability, trust, and above all, integrity. Someone flagged her deleted thread. Then someone else surfaced the screenshots. Not just the ones between her and Ben, but a few internal Slack exchanges that had circulated after the fallout. Nothing scandalous, just enough context to raise questions. By the time she realized what was happening, it had already escalated. I didn't gloat. I didn't leak anything. I didn't need to. The mask had cracked in public, and she had always relied on image more than substance. She was placed on leave, pending review of conduct and personal reputation impact. The phrase was cold, corporate, designed to feel surgical. Ben? Gone. Disconnected his socials. No goodbye posts. No statements. He vanished the way people do when they're not built to weather what they helped create. She tried to control the fallout. Reached out to a few colleagues, framed it as a misunderstanding with unfortunate timing. But timing was only the surface. The truth was, she'd built her credibility on emotional clarity, and now that clarity was working against her. Her voice, once so certain on podcasts and panels, now floated around in group chats and emails as a question mark. The people who once amplified her words were silent now. Not cruel, just absent. And absence, when you're used to being amplified, is a kind of reckoning all its own. I didn't reach out. She didn't ask for support. We were past that. She had spent years building a brand around being unshakably self-aware. Now she was forced to live inside it, with no script, no lighting, and no applause. She showed up unannounced. Not at work this time. Not at the house we once shared. But at the studio, the small, soundproof space where she used to record her podcast. The one I'd helped her soundproof, calibrate perfect. I hadn't been there in weeks. I was packing the last of my equipment, clearing space for something new. She must have tracked my calendar. Old habits. She walked in fast, eyes searching, lips parted like she'd been rehearsing a monologue the entire drive over. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she started. Her voice was breathless, not from running but from panic trying to hide behind reason. There were mixed signals. I thought we were losing each other already. And Ben, he wasn't. She caught herself, pivoted. I felt pressure. From everything. The expectations. The performance. You always saw through it, but I didn't know how to be real without disappointing people. And then it just... I didn't stop her. I didn't say a word. I just let her run. She kept going. I was confused. I didn't plan any of it. It wasn't about him. It was about me. I didn't move. I didn't nod. I didn't offer sympathy. She finally reached the end of her justifications, breath catching, voice hoarse. Eyes slightly red. Waiting. Wanting a reaction. Any reaction. Even anger. What she got was silence. Then, slowly, I reached for the small black remote on the table beside me. I pointed it at the studio console and pressed play. Her voice filled the room, clean, crisp, confident. A clip from one of her most shared episodes. If you ever feel like you're talking alone in a relationship, her recorded voice said. Maybe you are. It echoed once, then stopped. I turned toward her, finally meeting her eyes. Exactly, I said. That was all. She didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't plead. She just stood there, absorbing the lines she'd once said to hundreds of thousands of strangers, now handed back to her, stripped of applause, stripped of armor. And in that silence, I watched her realize something she couldn't reshape. The message had always been real, she just hadn't been